So what her 4 does, you have to jump, and then you jump, press her 4. And then what her 4 does is it has a giant AoE. It makes your gun into a giant AoE. At base it has 8-meter range, and you can add 100% range to get a 16-meter radius. And when you do that, it just has that wide range right there. And then what home does is the only thing we're going to be using this for is to boost ourselves forward. You just do that and you get a 40% movement buff. So you just hold it down. You can also press it and it'll give you a little bubble which you can jump 200% in. Well, your teammates can anyway, not you, I guess. And then what her 2 does is what we're going to be using this for, general rounds, is it gives you a plus 50% buff multi-hit chance. So it's a additive multi-hit chance increase of 50%. That means every 2 bullets, 1 bullet will multi-hit. And then what multi-hit damage increase does, it's an additive 50% multi-hit damage increase. That is half of your weapon damage. So what this does is every 2 bullets you will do half of your weapon damage. So realistically you are doing 25% extra damage with this on average. And then what Last Dagger does is it has an insane critical hit damage. This isn't accurate. Okay. What the Last Dagger has is an insane critical hit damage, an 8.9 critical hit damage multiplier, and then what its unique ability does is it will basically, every time you hit, it'll give you a crit chance, so you're basically having infinite 100% crit chance as long as you're hitting an enemy, which is all the time. And then once you hit 30 bullets, it'll take your entire mag when you reload and shoot all those bullets at once. So that's what strike is. And then when strike gets removed, you get a 15% movement buff. So that's why we're using Last Dagger. And then how this works is your firearm critical hit damage is guaranteed, so it's almost a 9 times buff to your damage. And then weak point damage, this is a 3 times weak point damage. That means you would have 27 times the damage, which as long as you're hitting headshots. You have to hit headshots and weak points. So you just jump, press your 4, and then shoot heads. And that's how you do this. And then you could also press your C, and then as long as you're in the air for a little bit, you have a 25% buff to your gun. Okay. So let's go over why we're choosing the modules we're choosing. So her 4, her redemption, scales off of your firearm damage times your HP, and then 0.8 of that, so 80% of that. So whatever HP you have, you multiply that by your firearm damage, and then you have 80% of that as your extra damage. So we need as much damage and as much HP as we can have on our Descendant and gun. So we're just choosing the 2 HP mods we can have, Stim Accelerant and Increased HP, and then you also need to get her 4 to have an equal or lower cooldown than her duration, so that you can just have it infinitely. You don't have any downtime on it. So we are adding Focus on Dimension, Focus on Fire, Maximize Duration, Skill Extension, MP Conversion, Nimble Fingers, and we are gonna have a skill cooldown. skill duration max on any reactor. I'm just using a random reactor I have. You can have any reactor you want. And then what we're basically doing on our external components, you want as much HP as you can get. A luxury power, you want to have an HP substat. Ideally, you'd have there's like a MP thing you can have with it too. So there's 4 different types of MP you can get as substats on these components. You can get in combat, out of combat recovery, and max MP, and then max MP recovery. So you can have all 4 of those. And so all you want is the max HP on a luxury component substat, and then 646 on HP on every single component you'll have as the main stat. And then that will give you 40 or 32,000 HP. And then Arche tuning, the scales off of firearm critical hit damage. The last dagger scales off of firearm critical hit damage. So I'm reaching out all the way up here to get these, and then what enhanced advantage affinity damage modifier does is, if you look at the screen for the whatever weakness the enemy has, they will take, as long as you have these 3, it'll take an extra 30% damage if you have these 3. And then after that, we're just going straight for all the HP that we can have, because it scales on both the multiplier of the critical hit damage, and on the HP. Inside of your inversion reinforcement, you can do aerial maneuvering raider. This will give plus 18% multi-hit chance. That changes you're basically doing an extra, it's like an extra 7% damage if you're flying in the air. And then this is, you kill an enemy and it gives you HP. It stacks up to 5 times. So this isn't like an extra module for Serena. It's really amazing. And then chill focus rounds. This is to take advantage of that plus 30% advantage affinity that you get inside of Arche tuning. So let's talk about the rolls on the last dagger. So you can go for chill element bonus, but that's like a around 15% extra damage. And then you go for 2 firearm attack, and then 1 fire rate and 1 round per magazine. Okay, so let's start a trial run. Jump at 2 seconds and press your 4. And then when you jump and press your 3, it'll boost you forward in the direction you're looking. It also reloads your gun, so you can utilize that whenever you want. And you just want to aim at the heads of the elites, because aiming at the heads of the elites will kill the enemies around them super fast. Because you're doing that 3 times damage on the elites, their health bar can take the damage you're doing, and it auto kills the elites around them, but also the minions too. So you just gotta memorize the locations of the elites, and then it's easy. Keep in mind that I'm level 18. I don't have like a third of my HP, so I'm taking a ton of damage. And if you jump in areas like this in the map, you can have that 25% extra damage. being max level is very important for your damage. I just catted my thing 8 times trying to boost my skill power and stuff, and I don't feel like doing it another time. So you press your 2 and you get the air, and then that gives a 25% extra buff to your damage. And then when the enemies are surrounding the guy on his thing, there's 2 bulky dudes that spawn. You want to hit one of them and it'll kill all the minions. So that's how I do this. If this helped, please leave a like, comment. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.